you're watching this, you're probably someone who identifies as a conscious leader or a conscious creator or just someone trying to live their life with consciousness and more ease, more flow. This is for you. I came across a quote on the internet recently that really captivated my attention, so I wanted to share it with you. And it's weird, so you've been warned. But it goes like this. You are a ghost, driving a meat-covered skeleton made of stardust, riding a rock that is hurtling through space. Fear nothing. Now, I have searched everywhere to figure out who said this quote originally or who wrote it, and I can't find out who said it, but I love this quote because I feel like this quote is something like the beginner's guide to the human soul. This one line contains a through line, a sort of narrative from our souls and spirits to our physical bodies, to the laws of the universe, and all the way back to our emotions and our actions. And that is really timely right now because so many people are living with soul level deep disturbance. We live in times that many, many people see as troubled times. And I was taught that in troubled times, the thing to do is to stand up and show your soul. My teacher, Clarissa Pinkola Estes, says that soul on deck shines like gold in troubled times, and it sends out sparks so that other struggling souls can catch light from it. So that she says, this is the way that proper matters, things that are really important, catch fire and get attended to in troubled times. And I love that concept. I find it super galvanizing and beautiful, but I disagree with her on one key point. I disagree that these are troubled times. See, I'm a spiritual contrarian. So I know that most people think that this world is a dumpster fire right now and that humanity is devolving fast. But the truth is that this planet that we are all riding spins in perfection. The sun rises and falls, the animals reproduce and the plants grow. And you and I don't have to do anything to make that happen. It happens whether or not you and I stay up all night with our minds racing with worry. I know the truth. The truth is that we are all born perfect. And by that I don't mean some magazine image, version of faux perfection, but I mean that we were born, all of us, every one of us, exactly as the divine force that created this universe put us here to do what I believe is each of our divine destiny, which is to create and to love, to be love. Now, it can be really hard to believe this because we live in a time when we are bombarded with all of the bad news that happens to everyone in the world in real time at the moment it happens. And our brains and our souls, our spirits were not wired to be able to take all of that in. Right? The truth is, though, that an order of magnitude more of good news happens all day, every day. We just don't hear about it. My teacher, Esther Hicks, says that if the media reported good news and bad news in the proportions in which it actually occurred, one time a day we would see a swoosh across the bottom of the television screen so fast that we couldn't even read it, and that would be all the bad news. Because the sun rises and falls every day, and we don't have to do anything to make that happen. The earth keeps spinning in perfection without you or I having to do anything. And that is enormous good news. But it doesn't change the fact that so many souls are troubled. And that's totally understandable. This has become a huge focus of my life's work. I am in love with the idea that I can help create any number of additional souls who are out there operating in peace, with ease, with flow, creating things that impact and sort of help make life less savage for those other souls around them. See, I'm a marketer turned entrepreneur, and I only work on businesses that I think of as transformational, products and brands and services that help people live healthier, wealthier, or wiser lives. I have worked on some of the biggest real estate, media, health, and wellness brands in the world. But I realized something recently. I realized that my entire career had basically been a fraud on some level. I was spending a lot of my time doing what Steve Jobs called the head fake. it was like I was using these brands and these products and the ability to market them as a secret strategy for answering people's deep soul level SOSes, their deep cries for help. It was a little like I was saying to people, hey, okay, you want to lose weight? Great. I'm going to work on the world's largest health and fitness app, and we're going to help you lose weight. But I'm also, my team and I are also going to slip you all these secret messages about radical self acceptance and about how deeply worthy of love you really are. And all of those things will actually help you lose weight, but they're also the foundation for like just deep soul level well being and joy. But the older I get, the bolder I get, and the more transparent I get about bringing 100% of myself to work. And so I've just decided to start working directly on the issue that I really deeply care about, which is the well being of our souls. Now, here's the thing that I find fascinating about souls. Every one of us has one, but almost no one knows anything about their soul. And that's fascinating because in order to care for our souls, in order to access the deepest levels of soul well being, we actually have to know something about them. So I want to share with you a little bit about how I think the soul works. And then we'll talk a little bit about some practices for what I think of as practices for personal disruption, which are really like practices for removing your internal, for releasing your internal resistance to your soul's default state, which I believe is deep well-being and joy. So here's how the soul works. I believe that we are all born perfect. We are born perfect, whether we are born with what someone else thinks of as a disease or a defect. We are all born and created in the image of God, in the image of the divine. But the moment that we start understanding symbols and language, this process starts that my teacher, Don Miguel Ruiz, calls the domestication of humans, right? We are taught that we are good if we do X or bad if we do Y. Good if our body looks a certain way or we have a certain amount of money, and bad if we don't. And all of these things are lies because we're actually just deeply good, regardless of whether we perform or conform. But what happens is across a lifetime, we start to exist in a whole understanding or belief and vision about the world that is based on all of these familial and social and cultural lies. Now, that sounds really grim, but the truth is it's not all bad, because every time we sort of incorporate one of these lies, there is a seed that's planted deep at our core, deep at the basis of who we are. And those seeds tend to be like, desires for ways that we wish the world was different or better, dreams, right? They're like little treasures that are planted at our core every time we come under the influence of one of these lies. And each of these seeds actually creates a new layer of like clarity. Even if it's clarity about what we don't want or what we wish were different about the world, that is the same thing as clarity, a little more clarity about what we do want, a little more clarity about who we really are and what we are really here to do or create or be. Now, for some of us, something will happen across our lifetime and a little shift will start to happen, right? We'll get a little glimpse that maybe the lies are not true. We'll get a glimpse that perhaps we are deeply worthy or deeply powerful, deeply okay, right? And across these moments when we have these shifts, we start this process that happens in life of peeling away the layers and the lies. And what lies beneath, once we've done that peeling away, is not just the worthy perfection into which we were born. It's that perfection, but it's been honed, it's been burnished, it's been made stronger and fiercer and energized by all of the life we've lived up to that period of time, by all, like through that process of coming under and then coming out from under the lies, we become clear and we become fierce. So these sort of soul level shifts occur in sort of daily, everyday moments transitional and transformational seasons, and longer arc, years long odysseys, sort of cycles of journeys along which we get increasingly clear about who we really are and what we're really here to do and to be in this world. Moments are the literal moments in time every day when we experience sort of spiritual and emotional peaks or pits. They are the moments of the day when we have opportunity to really trigger momentum that changes our experience at a soul level. These tend to be like the moment when you wake up, the moment before you go to bed, the moment you hear about something or experience something in the world that triggers a really strong emotional reaction. A moment, even a moment in which you have a hard conversation or have to make a hard decision. Seasons tend to be the eras in our life when we are very focused on one or more problems or challenges or transitions, and they can be very pivotal opportunities for us to lift ourselves up into higher levels of soulful living. Seasons are the things that make people say adulting is really hard. I came across the concept of seasons when I was cleaning out the bedroom, the former bedroom of my young adult son, who had had a really hard time as a teenager and in the process of becoming an adult. And I went in there and noticed there were 300 books on the shelf that I hadn't even looked at in years. So I was just curious, like, what are these books? And they were definitely of a theme, right? It was like how to keep your teenager out of trouble and what to do if you can't. How to get a divorce in California. Should I stay or should I go? And this bookshelf was like a snapshot in time of this whole season of my life. And I sort of sat down on the bed in there just overwhelmed with like appreciation because it was like I had this rush of insight that the great level of capacity for joy and love and flow and grace and peace and power that I experience in my everyday life now, I know for sure is a result of having gone through that season, right? So that's an example of what a season is. Seasons can include times of like divorce, financial hardship, career issues. They're often around transition times in our lives and things that we think of as problems or challenges. Now, odysseys are the very long arc transformations that we make in our lives. Odysseys tend to be made up of like multiple journeys, right? Where we go through cycles and cycles. And in every cycle around the same issue, we lose a little layer of the lies. We lose some of the fear, some of the anxiety, some of the depression. We gain meaning. We gain boldness. In my work, I've seen people go through decades of career transitions and career transformations to get increasingly closer and closer to purpose. So that's like an odyssey toward purpose. Esther Hicks likes to say this thing that I love around that I think of as so relevant to odysseys, which is that you never get it done, but fortunately, you also can't get it wrong, right? So if you can't get it wrong and you never get it done, then you can kind of click out of perfectionism, click out of anxiety about whether you're going to get it right, and like start to enjoy the cycles within the odysseys, because really the odysseys are the same thing as living an ever more awakened life. Now, I want to share with you a handful of practices for making these soul shifts and keeping your soul unstuck. The first of them is a set of what I think of as mindset practices from this book I think of as like a handbook for humanity called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Okay, the first of the four agreements is to be impeccable with your word. This does not just mean to do what you say you will do, although that can be included in it. Being impeccable with your word means to deeply understand and appreciate the power your word has to bless or curse yourself and those around you, and to make a commitment to using your word only in the direction of love and of light. Okay, this single agreement creates transcendence. Don Miguel Ruiz says if you can practice just this one agreement, your life will become something like heaven on earth. The second and third agreements are to never make assumptions and to never take anything personally. Nothing anyone else does or says is about you personally, even if they target it to you. All of us are out here just living and operating in our understanding of this planet based on the agreements and a lot of the lies that we were taught in our families and our society and our culture. So understand that, never take anything personally, and begin practicing having hard conversations, asking questions to get clarification, and really just like having the hard conversations necessary to stop making assumptions about why people are doing the things they are doing. These two agreements eliminate almost all of the interpersonal drama that we ever experience in life. The fourth agreement is to always do your best and just to be gentle and easy with yourself, understanding that your best is going to be different on different days. That fourth agreement I think of as the regret prevention agreement. The second set of practices I want to share is to mind your own business. It's short and sweet. Understand that your business is limited to your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. We spend a ton of our time in this culture looking at other people's behavior, judging other people's behavior, deciding whether it works for us or not, deciding how we feel about it, posting on Facebook and like gossiping on Facebook about whether we are outraged or not at what someone else has done. This is to our great detriment. We are pouring our life force into a focus on someone else and into a power struggle about what they are doing. When was the last time you changed what you did because somebody else didn't like it? Probably not ever. Not as an adult, ever. So to do this is to invest our life force into something we can't control, and it also just creates great turbulence in our system. All right, so mind your own business, which I've recently expanded to include mind your own mind. Like only you can be the boss of what you let into your mind, your spirit, your consciousness. So, scrolling endlessly on Facebook because you're fixated and horrified by the headlines to the point where you're like, spiritually in the fetal position and paralyzed is not helpful to anyone. Listen to me say this and catch this principle. Collective paralysis and panic benefit no one. You are not a bad citizen if you don't take all of this bad news in all of the time. In fact, you might find yourself being more engaged as a citizen and more inspired to be part of the solution to the problems that you see if you distance yourself and guard very zealously what you allow into your consciousness. I invite you to try that. The next set of practices is to create a morning ritual for yourself and to respect and practice a morning ritual. This means to just invest some time every day doing things that make you feel good for no other reason than that they make you feel good, right? And your morning ritual can look really different than someone else's. I read wisdom literature. You could read sci-fi. My morning ritual is really elaborate and takes a lot of time. I get up in the morning, I sit in the hot tub and listen to something inspirational. I walk my dogs, I meditate and pray. I read something expansive. I write something very expressive. That's a lot of parts, but I tell you what, I get up a little early to do it. And the ROI, the return on investment I get for the rest of my whole day, the increased level of productivity and creativity and flow and fun that I have in my life because I do it is so worth it. I wouldn't go back for anything. If you're daunted by the idea of creating a morning ritual, I would just tell you that it's just a habit. It's just a habit like anything else. If you practice it, you can create it. Now, you can, lots of people think that you got to do things a certain way. I just want to share with you that in my conversations with people who are living very soulful, on fire, engaged lives, there are three elements of morning ritual that they tend to always mention. One is sitting or meditation, one is writing expressively, and one is reading expansively. So I'll just elaborate on those three really quickly. I call sitting instead of meditation because in my talks with people, I'm finding a lot of people have meditation anxiety. Meditation anxiety. If you're experiencing meditation anxiety, I invite you to consider that you're doing it wrong. You don't have to do meditation in any kind of way. So what I like to do is just take all of that out of it and say this. Just sit still in a chair 5 minutes a day for 5 days. See if things don't change for you. That's it. Don't even call it meditation. Okay, I think of the other two as going hand in hand, writing expressively and reading expansively. So writing expressively is another one of these practices that a lot of people have a lot of opinions about how you have to do it. You'll hear about morning pages. You'll hear about writing 3 pages longhand. You'll hear 750 words. All of those are great guidelines. They work. But I say the only thing that matters is that you are dumping the contents of your brain out somewhere. If you need to do it on a computer, great. If you need to do it longhand, awesome. Um, it matters that you do it without editing. It matters that you do it without trying to write anything good or anything that you'll ever be showing to anyone else. You may end up wanting to show your writing to someone else, but if you go into it with that intention, your brain will click into editing mode. Your brain cannot operate in flow mode and editing mode at the same time. So that's writing expressively. Reading expansively. By this, I just mean reading something that makes you feel a little shift inside, makes you feel resonance, makes you feel a little open inside. And you'll learn if you develop the practice of reading something, if it's a paragraph or a page every day, you will start to find those writers out there whose work causes that level of expansion in your heart and soul and spirit. In fact, almost all of the people that I've mentioned today and called my teachers are people I've never met, right? It's that their work, I have read their work, I've studied it, I've incorporated and integrated it into my life and who I am. I received it in the spirit in which they offered it, which was the spirit of teaching. So I encourage you to do that. And the only way you can do that consistently is to just be in the practice of reading something, even a little something, every day. The final practice for personal disruption is to stop trying to force things to happen. Stop talking about world domination. Stop talking about how real the struggle is. Just stop. If you do these other practices, you sit still, you practice the 4 agreements, right? You read and expand yourself through reading. You write and express yourself through writing. You mind your own business. You may find what I found, which was that I got so much done in my life for so many years with nose to grindstone intense effort, making things happen. But every one of the biggest, most impactful, best things that had ever happened in my life were things that came to me as bolts of inspiration when I was in that steady state, still calm place, when I was cultivating that everyday practice of flow and ease. And then when I got that bolt of inspiration, things aligned, I just milked it. I ran with it, right? And so you'll find that your entire life becomes more creative, by which I mean you create more impactful, more joyous things in relationships and life when you're in that steady, calm state versus trying to force things to happen. So the next time you find yourself in a dark moment or a dark night of the soul, or just having a craving for meaning, for clarity, or for purpose, I want you to think back to our Beginner's Guide of the Human Soul, that quote. Remember these things. Remember, you are a ghost. You are soul and spirit. You have limitless creative power, and you don't have to do or perform anything to receive that. You are driving this meat-covered skeleton made of stardust. Your physical body is a miraculous, miraculous contraption, right? Care for it and thank it. And we're all just riding this rock that is hurtling through space. Well-being is the order of this universe. And again, we don't have to do anything to make this planet spin and the sun rise and fall. So fear nothing and force nothing. Be gentle and easy with yourself as you try on these practices for receiving what I believe is your divine inheritance, soul level well-being and joy. So lift your head up, put your heart out, and I will see you soon.